Hey yo, what's up, fellas? Today I got TooMeanToBean on, website designer, activist, TikToker. Do you want to describe yourself, your ideology, what you do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a content creator on TikTok, like a software engineer by trade. Uh, so that's what I do, like from my job, I guess. Um, yeah, and my ideology, and I guess Marxist Leninist, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little bit gray right now. You're still in the process
Yeah,
of
yeah,
figuring it out,
yeah.
like a sexuality. You're exploring everything.
Right, right.
uh, Once you go Marxist Leninist, though, you can't go back. That's what I would say. You know.
Yeah, I think there's some truth in that. I think there's some truth in that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But what I really want to bring you on here for was to talk about the Reverse Canary mission, which is a website you've created. So, like, first of all, what is the Reverse Canary mission? What does it do?
Yeah, basically reverse canary mission. The URL is reversecanarymission.org. Basically, it's a website where you like post. It's mostly for celebrities. Most celebrities were endorsed or in some way supported current genocide or like the historical. Yeah, so some notable examples are like Taylor Swift, who showed her Eras Tour movie in Israel, for example. I think that's where the big reason I should go there.
Okay, okay. Could you move a little bit closer? By the way, you're cutting out a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, no, it's good. So, why do you think it was so important to make the Reverse Canary mission to just call out these like anti-Palestine, pro-Israel, Zionist celebrities, content creators? Like, what do you think putting public pressure on them is so important and just informing the public about them?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the big ways, like what is considered normal within our culture is dictated by like celebrities.
Yeah.
The things that they hold. Like a lot of our society's beliefs are like reflections of like, the beliefs like famous people. Unfortunately, that is the way it is.
Mm.
We should work that way. But, because it's that way, I think it's important to like criticize celebrities when they do things that are, not good. So like one example of this, and I was going to outside is like people criticizing Taylor Swift for like her private jet usage, for example, and criticizing celebrities over stuff like it kind of changes the public narrative, these sorts of issues. So like criticizing celebrities as a kind of it's an attempt to normalize picking up because like that's something that everyone should be doing, right? Um, and so criticizing celebrities is like fast way to do that rather than like maybe tell everyone in your personal circle you need to speak up about Gaza, and it makes more sense to try and change it,
Right. Right.
like criticizing celebrities.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, celebrities wield such a large public power, basically, and they are so enmeshed within the system of capitalism. They're in this weird class relation where they're sort of workers, right? Like they don't own any means of production, but they're such
Right.
privileged workers. They're such well off, rewarded workers that their class interests almost sort of become enmeshed with the state, with capitalism itself, and of course they end up becoming sometimes petite bourgeois. They end up owning like small factories and businesses, but they reflect our culture's values and they hold so much power just in the minds of people, average everyday people, teenagers. Ariana Grande was able to raise so much money just by posting about Palestine. And of course, she had to be pressured to do that. So,
Right.
yeah, we really can't discount celebrity culture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's like when the Ukraine-Russia war started, like Selena Gomez made a post in support of Ukraine. And so it's not like these celebrities are like apolitical, right? I think people this time around have like there's been a lot of backlash to people like me, like, oh, like why are you criticizing these celebrities? Like they shouldn't be expected to speak up. But like the capitalist class who kind of like um sort of provides these celebrities with their or like they definitely pressure their celebrities to speak up. Which is why Selena made that post, right? So it's like a weird double standard, I think people
Yeah,
like, the people can pressure the celebrities, but yeah, the capitalist class are like,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
Celebrities are so enmeshed within our state, and what are they? But just like basically, in my opinion, a reflection of every single society's value, right? And what is capitalist America's values? It's opulence, it's wealth, it's supporting the state always. So celebrities are always sort of enmeshed within, like, you cannot separate celebrities from ideology. And they're always supporting the state narrative, basically Ukraine, the Iraq War, the Afghanistan wars, and they get punished if they go against the grain.
right, yeah, the Dixie Chicks, I think, for the Iraq War, they got punished hard for speaking out against
Pretty much. Yeah, yeah.
it.
And so many celebrities are currently getting punished for speaking out for Palestine. What does it mean when you go against the state narrative? You lose deals, right? You lose deals, you lose
Right.
money. Um, you become popular with the people, but you lose everything. So there's this systemic uh system in place to make celebrities silent on Gaza, make them silent on genocide, make them silent and fall in line with the state. Do you want to pick up any one as I'm laying down here? Or?
Yeah, I just want to talk about that double standard again, because it's like when the capitalists pressure the celebrities to either stay silent or like endorse a genocide, we just view that as normal.
Right.
Like when people online try and pressure these celebrities, we're viewed, it's like we're doing too much. Like we're saying like you guys are just terminally online. Um, and I think it's just like this weird tension between like what we consider just like when the capitalists do something, it's normal. When we the people do something, it's suddenly not terminally online behavior. Um, which has been kind of frustrating, right? But it's something I think we still have to continue doing despite like the backlash.
Yeah, yeah, it's very odd, and of course, Zionism is so enmeshed within celebrity culture. It's odd, right? Why on earth are celebrities like die hard for Zionism? Pharrell Williams, for example, played a concert. I was using your website, Reverse Engineering Machine. It's a great.
Yeah, that's crazy that he did that. You know,
Really, for anybody that doesn't know, Pharrell Williams did a charity fundraiser. He played for a charity fundraiser for the IDF. So you raised how much money do you raise? Do you know?
I don't know the exact number.
But he raised like a ton of money for the IDF, basically, for singing songs about him. It's odd how diehard celebrities are within Zionism, and it really just goes to show that celebrities themselves are ideological, right? That they are enmeshed in the state. We think of Hollywood and our press and all this entertainment as separate from the state, but really, because of the structures of capitalism, because what is our government other than a representation of multi-billion-dollar industries? Because of this, the free market basically just tends towards the state narrative. Um,
Yeah.
so, uh, moving on from the reverse canary mission, Joe Biden has recently stepped down. Kamala Harris is likely going to be the nominee. I'm not sure when this video is going to release, but what do you think so many people have been just flocking towards Kamala Harris, especially from the pro-Palestine side?
Um, yeah, I think a big part of it, I think some of it is like genuine. Like, I think a lot of people will like see like, oh, this is like a black woman who like be our next president, like weird side. And that's like very like a surface level analysis. I think there are some people who are just happy that like Genocide Joe is out. And yeah, I think some people absolutely view her as like they view her as like a policy shift from Joe Biden. Uh, I don't think that's true, personally.
Right.
I don't think people should be that excited about Kamala Harris. I think, like, at least with regards to, like, Palestine, I don't think her policy is going to be all that different from Joe Biden or even with Trump for the matter. Like, the cancel for saying that. I don't, like, materially speaking, like, sure. But, like, yeah, materially speaking, I don't see why anyone would leave. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that's true. I think one of the big reasons why she sprung up in popularity is just because people don't want to acknowledge the real problem, which is neoliberal capitalism. because acknowledging, yeah, that Kamala Harris is not the solution, necessarily me questioning, like, an individual questioning their own beliefs about, like, their role in, like, a neoliberal society.
Yeah.
I think people can't handle that. They can't handle it. Is why I think people are like, especially people who've been pro-Palestine, they've been really supporting Harris. It really makes not that much logical sense. And I think
Yeah. Yeah. I think to a part of a sense, it sort of shows, Lenin had this famous phrase that like left unity. I'm sort of paraphrasing. I'm not doing a direct quote, but left unity so often is used just as a catch-all to allow in liberals to our movement. And I think what has happened with the pro-Palestine movement is that so many liberals have come in calling themselves leftists. Leftist is such a dead word in America right now. Everybody's a leftist, right? Like even Bullsh and like pro-Ukraine people and, these imperialist monsters are leftists. Destiny is apparently a leftist, even though he's pro-Israel. So many people have come into our movement who are not principled, who are willing to bend to neoliberalism, who don't have a red line that is genocide, and they've suddenly become pro-Kamala Harris because they want to wash off the blood that the Democrats have on their hands, right? Kamala Harris has as much blood as any IDF soldier in this genocide, right? She was the vice president during this whole orchestration event. We all know that Joe Biden,
like, she had nothing to do with the current administration. Like, it's the Biden-Harris administration.
yeah, exactly. So it's insane how much they want to act like she has had nothing to do with this genocide and how much they want to wash the blood off the Democrats' hands. Going to celebrity culture, though, the Democrats rely so heavily on celebrity endorsement, right? What do you think Hollywood is so enmeshed within the Democratic Party structure?
Like, why do I think that's the case?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are differences between, like, Republicans and Democrats. I think Democrats do, like, genuinely support things such as, like, abortion rights and queer and trans rights. Like, on paper, they will support these.
Yeah.
And, like, Hollywood is, like, it is filled with a lot of artist-type people. So, like, naturally, they would gravitate towards the Democratic Party. Also, like, a lot of these Hollywood people are very wealthy, so they're not going to support someone outside of, like, neoliberal kind of like Republican. So I think, yeah, they support the Democrats because the Democrats will allow them to stay wealthy, but also support their human rights.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good answer because that's what the Democrats basically are. They'll support some rights for minorities, but they're not going to materially benefit anybody. It's Wakanda forever on Tuesday and then funding the police on Wednesday. It's insane. But some people have been saying that all this support for Kamala Harris is astroturf. Do you feel like that is true to any sense, or do you feel like this is actually organic, that our country is full of these many liberals that just love Kamala Harris and genocide?
I think the answer to this is kind of complicated. I don't feel like it's astroturfing. Right? I don't believe it's astroturfing. I think the reason why it feels like astroturfing, I talked of this concept in a recent video, it's because of how the algorithm works. So I can expound a little bit more on. I think a lot of people believe that these content algorithms, such as the ones that power like TikTok and Instagram Reels, people believe they're optimized to basically make people stay on the as well.
Right. Yeah.
That's not like the entire, because a lot of people who use these never spend any money with these. They never engage in any ads. And where are these people? I'm presuming that you're probably one of these people, you're not like shopping on TikTok Shop or whatever. So then it's like our engagement doesn't really matter to the end. What matters is the engagement of people who do spend its money. And this demographic of consumer just tends to be upper middle class white people, and they make up the plurality of that.
Yeah.
So the results of this is that these content algorithms will sort of promote the ideology of that group because they are the most powerful consumer demographic. And in like how we observe this is, stuff like the Kamala Harris Brett Summer stuff. You know, like to anyone who's not like upper middle class white, it's so cringy. It's so like you an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, like this makes no sense. This is not how you run a campaign. Like, especially because like the Kamala Harris campaign, in order to like win the votes that they need to win, they don't need to appeal to those upper middle class white people who will probably already vote in their race. They need to appeal to like working class people of color, other minorities, queer minorities. These are the people that the Democrats need to show out and turn in order to win. It is, I think, a function of the algorithm. Like, all the support for Kamala Harris is in this, like, really white, neoliberal sort of aesthetic.
Yeah.
Powered by, like, Charlie XCX and Chapel Roan. Well, I like both of those artists, but it's just, like, they kind of are, like, they're pretty white.
Right. Right. Bringing this back to speaking about celebrities, or hold on, I'll talk about that first. What you're talking about, yeah, I do think that the Democratic Party's main support base is this very upper middle class, gated community, Pilates classes sort of demographic that wants to be in touch with the masses somewhat. Like oh yeah, I'll care about trans rights and blah.
They don't have a Black Lives Matter sign in their front yard. There's a lot of those types of people in Seattle where I live.
Right, right. It's performative, but they don't want to actually materially change anything in society because capitalism works for them, right? Like, who does capitalism work the best for? Well, first of all, it's the bourgeois, the rich. But second of all, the second biggest class that capitalism works for is the gated community, middle class white person. Everybody else, pretty much, on Earth is slaving away. You know, we've got slaves in cocoa mines for Hershey Farms and cobalt mines in the Congo. These people essentially slave away for the lifestyles of middle-class white people. And it's insane. Kamala Harris has broken fundraising records, which makes no sense. Yeah, and she's such a disgustingly corporate politician. She's getting her money for her campaign no matter what. Like, why on earth would somebody want to donate to Kamala Harris when she's already getting it from multi-billion-dollar corporations? Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's just add on to that. That's why it feels like turf. It's because everything about the campaign is so alien to working class in America. And like, if you're working class, especially a person of color, and you're viewing like everything the campaign is done, it feels not real. Feel at odds with reality. I think that's what people say it's astroturfing, but no, I think it's just because the upper middle class white liberal is like the predominant cultural force within our society.
Right. They have the most purchasing power. Everything's sort of geared towards them. That makes sense. Yeah. But, I bringing this back to the celebrity culture, do you think pressuring Zionists, like celebrities holding their feet to the fire with the Canary mission or the reverse Canary mission actually works? Like, do you think that us doing this sort of online thing where we boycott them, block them, everything, do you think that actually has a measurable effect?
Yeah. I mean, like, materially speaking, like, you can just point to numbers. I mean, like, there are like lots of public pressure, did a fundraiser for Gaza, like raise a ton of money. I think there are some celebrities who have taken stuff down because of fear.
Right.
And that's like a material thing we can point to. I think like very early on, like for example, Justin Bieber took down his posts for like public backlash. Yeah, and like I think within like certain fandoms, like because of public pressure, like the celebrities aren't speaking out in favor of Israel, which may not seem like a win, but like if we didn't do this pressure, like it's possible that many of these celebrities would in support of Israel, which would be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Oftentimes on this podcast, I talk about creating like a counter hegemony to the main hegemony, right, of the capitalist class. So basically, I'll explain it briefly for anybody who doesn't know what a hegemony is. A hegemony is sort of a cultural embodiment that the capitalist class imbues onto ordinary working class people, and that's through structures such as the government, media, church, religion, education. And basically what it teaches working class people is that the bourgeois interest, the rich's interest is the same as my interest, right? So a trucker in the middle with who has no interest, who has none of the same interest as Jeff Bezos, will be defending Jeff Bezos getting tax cuts, right? Hollywood is part of the hegemon, and I think by pressuring Hollywood to be against, Israel, not Palestine, but being pro-Palestine, at the very least, dropping Israel, I think creates a beautiful counter-hegemon that wakes a lot of people up to this genocide. So yeah, I think Reverse Canary Mission is great in that. Was Reverse Canary Mission based on? Obviously, it's called Reverse Canary Mission. Was it based on Zionist organizations that were doxing people, or?
Yeah, I mean, you already know the answer to this, but for those who don't know, yeah, there is a website called canarymission.org, and the only reason that website exists is to basically dox pro-Palestine activists, especially student activists. They target student activists especially heavily because they know students are especially vulnerable to being like blackballed in the industry.
Yeah,
Like you might not even be able to find a first job within, especially like the entertainment and finance industries, uh, where like, yeah, Zionists do hold a lot of power within those industries. Like, what was that Harvard guy's name? Bill Ackman, for example, said that, yeah, he's not hiring any pro-Palestinian person, period, especially students, like, and so, like, this Canary Mission website basically tries to pressure these students to stay for fear of, like, career opportunity.
that's insane. That really is
Yeah.
insane.
We also don't know who runs the website. It's like they keep it totally private because they know it's fucked up. They know how to run this website. Like we'd be pretty fucking mad. Um,
that is insane. Like that is very 1984. Like it's so often we talk about the so-called authoritarianism of socialist states. Like if this shit was happening right in North Korea, right? Like oh my god, if I heard oh my god in North Korea, if you are against genocide, you get blacklisted from your job and you get publicly called out to everybody. If you're a student, like that would send us with shivers. We would be going crazy. But since it's in America, it's normalized for whatever reason, and we're the
yeah, and the fact that it's normalized, I think, for people who don't understand what hegemony means, it's like the fact that we accept the Canary Mission as just normal and not surveillance. Oh, that is what hegemony is. It's like what we accept as normal, which we really probably should.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's partly because it's a private individual, or at least they're framing themselves as private. We don't know if they have any government support or, Zionist support, but they're basically acting like agents for the state. You don't need direct state involvement. People, because they're subsumed by the hegemony, can just become actors of the state all on their own. But yeah, it's insane. And the job market is so enmeshed in Zionism. We've got Google very heavily invested in Israel, Airbnb very heavily invested in Israel, so on and so forth. Microsoft. So if you want to get a job at these places, and you're outed as anti-Zionist, you're seen as a troublemaker by these jobs, right? Like a hiring manager is not going to hire you if you were at a protest for Palestine. What next? You might want to start to organize a union within my company. Cut into my bottom line. So it is insane.
Yeah, I think in the Bay Area at the Google office, there's an organization called No Tech for Apartheid. And basically, they're fighting against specifically Project Nimbus, which is like a surveillance project in Israel that's powered by companies like Google and Forbes. Basically, they just sit in at one of the Google offices. I think they were all fired or put on like administrative leave.
Right.
So yeah, you really can't speak out. You're going to get materially.
Right. And there's been a couple of Google employees fired for both unionizing recently this year, attempting to unionize, and also fired for being anti-Zionist. So it's insane. You yourself work within the software industry. Have you seen any pro-Zionism within your limited experience within it? Obviously, you can't speak for the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been employed since the genocide began back in October, so I can't speak that much about like internal company politics or anything. Um, I will say that most people in tech, unfortunately, are not that politically involved, which in itself is like a political stance you can take, right?
Yeah,
I don't think like because people in tech make so much money, their ideology is going to be or closer to like the bourgeoisie's ideology, more
absolutely.
so than the working ideology. Yeah, but that's not to say there are people in tech like working to fight, like Zionism, for example. It's just like much more rare thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the second you start making good money, you sort of become this you're sort of pressured into becoming not extreme, right? Like you're not like extremely conservative or extremely liberal. Of course, which the American overturn window is so fucked that for anybody who is actually a leftist, like a Marxist, these are basically the same things. But you're sort of pressured within the American overturn window to become just this boring moderate that accepts the neoliberal system as it is and doesn't want much
Right, exactly.
within it. I actually have a funny story. My boss, and I'm not in the tech industry. I work corporate job, pencil pusher, whatever. And my ass has a very similar name to the party I'm trying to organize with. I'm onboarding with the PSL. So my boss texted me. I thought it was the dude I'm onboarding with the PSL with. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I read the party program and everything.
So what party are we playing? Are we playing a pizza party or something? Inside your house was fine.
Yeah, and then he was like, "What party program?" And I went back through the text message. I'm like, "Oh shit, this is my boss."
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. But he has had like funny takes, like, I prefer Trump over Biden, but I hate Trump's mean tweets, which is such like I think that's so descriptive of just this moderate neoliberal position that everybody within the business world,
Right.
who makes good money is sort of pressured into, like, yeah, I don't really care about genocide. Trump's, I prefer him, but I just don't like his mean tweets. It's funny. Um, do you think that, speaking of Democrats, Zionism, Kamala Harris, or how do you pronounce her name right? Kamala?
I think it's common, like emphasis on that KA.
Kamala, yeah. I've been pronouncing her name wrong. Do you think Democrats are just as big of enemies to us as Republicans?
Um, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, pretty much. I think, yeah, anyone like they're pretty much around. I did see a funny Reddit comment. It's not funny. It's kind of sad, honestly. But basically, it was like talking about how we need to vote for Kamala Harris. If the options were between 100% Hitler and 99% Hitler, I'm going to go with 99% Hitler every time.
Yeah.
I just thought that was like, I mean, that's kind of a crazy statement to make. Like, if our two options are 100% Hitler and 99% Hitler, like, maybe we should question the system that produced this outcome rather than like, oh, which Hitler to vote for.
Yeah, maybe I should guillotine both the Hitlers,
Right, exactly. Yeah. I do think like it's also like such a moderate neoliberal to be like anti-immigrants in all its forms. Like, if Trump really is going to be a fascist dictator, like so many of the fearmongers say he is,
Yeah.
the answer isn't to vote him out. It's not to perpetually vote him out for however long America continues to exist, right? The answer is to use some sort of force to remove like fascist entity from our society. I don't think people are willing to accept that this yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, it speaks to like how limited liberals' ideas of the world are. Like, what is fascism if not a tool of the bourgeois to protect their interests? And so, Democrats and Republicans are just as easily able to implement in fascism. And we've seen that fascism come from the Democrats. Like, they say 99% Hitler and 100% Hitler. Kamala Harris is already 100% Hitler. Like, if your red line is not genocide for Hitler, then what is it? She just
Right, exactly.
Hitler that says nice words about trans people, and it's empty. Her words about trans people, her words about minorities are empty. They don't hold any weight to them. I don't actually believe that the Democrats are um, change anything. So
Right, yeah. If you look at like Biden's policy, you can see that it's just not true. I mean, even if you look outside of, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. What you say?
Yeah. And what I was just gonna say is, obviously the Democratic politicians are unsavable monsters. I think Democratic voters, some of them do have a good heart. Like they can be converted. They can be shown the light. Not all of them. Not all of them. A lot of them are deathly subsumed within the hegemony to a way that they can't be shifted. And also they have a material interest in backing it up, like the middle class whites, as you were saying. But I think, yeah, a lot of them do have places, good hearts in good places. They're just so normalized into a society where genocide is okay, where two choices are the only options, that they can't imagine anything broader than that. And our job is to show them that we can.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think like, yeah, so many of the conversations are just dominated around this. Who do we pick within this two-party system rather than how do we organize to get rid of this two-party system? Do something that's beneficial for everyone, not just like a single bold people in America.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you have anything more to say? Or
I do have some thoughts about like the psychology of these people whose minds like seemingly be changed.
yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that. Um, I was recently listening to. Do you know who Judith Butler is?
No.
They're like a gender theorist type of philosopher.
Oh, okay.
And they talk about this idea called like the phantasm. Basically, a phantasm is an erroneous conclusion that's drawn to hold a contradiction within itself. So like Marxist ideology, right? If we have a belief and then we experience something that is in contradiction to that belief, we update that belief, and that's like the dialectical process, right?
Yeah.
What a phantasm is it basically stops the dialectical process from happening. So basically, if your beliefs are with your reality, you create this thing called the phantasm, and it's just basically this a conclusion that makes no sense. It can somehow contain the contradiction, so you don't change your. So the example within the gender theory space, the reason we've seen so much like anti-trans ideology crop up is because people can't handle the truth, like the failures of the neoliberal. So they'll come to the conclusion. So like, let's say you're working class, right?
Yeah.
Your premise is that you think the free market is a good thing. And then the material reality you observe is that your boss is just laying off people. You're suddenly kind of with our job. And basically the economy around you is kind of not doing that well. So the correct maybe conclusion to draw is maybe the free market was it's not so good. But the phantasm that like these people create is that like it's actually trans people who are to blame.
Yeah.
For this economy. You know, men are turning into women, like no one wants to work anymore because they hate real. And all these sorts of like weird conclusions that are drawn are the results of these people's inability to deal with like having to change their world.
Yeah.
I guess it kind of makes sense because like if you accept that like stuff like free market capitalism, it's actually not so good. There are a lot of implications that come with that. Such as like, what is my place in this like horrible system? Like, am I helping to uphold it? And a lot of people can't deal with those implications because it's like, maybe we are in some way a little bit global all of this. And so basically like one thing I also want to drive home is like, it's not just Republicans with these basic beliefs, it's liberals as well, like Democrats. So like, let's analyze like this tier modeling of Reddit 2025, right? If our premise is that like neoliberal democracy is a good thing, but our options are 100% Hitler and 80% Hitler, like the correct dialectical process here would be like, okay, maybe like we have to update our original premise, like neoliberal democracy maybe is actually kind of shit. But like that if you want to change that premise, like it comes with like a lot of fun content, right? Like, oh man, like everything I learned was wrong. Like it's kind of like a crazy stuff to me. So instead, I think people construct this phantasm. We've seen it recently with Kamala Harris. Like Kamala Harris will stop Project 2025. It'll stop the rise of fascism, which is like about it, it doesn't make that much sense because like 2025 is not the last year of humanity. Like,
Right.
Kamala Harris win is going to become Project 2021. What do we do then? We just have to keep voting. Um, and the problem with that is like if you keep voting blue no matter who, they never have to concede any of your demands. So the Democrats will just move farther to the right until they're indistinguishable from Republicans. If you keep voting blue no matter who, right? And the thing is, if you point out this logic to the people who are saying vote blue no matter who, their usual response is like, okay, then what's your solution, bro?
Right.
I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I've gotten so much of it. I've gotten so much of it. Like you don't have a solution. And like I always counter with, you don't have a solution. You don't have an actual solution to stop fascism, you know?
Right, your conclusion makes no sense, but it's like people don't like when like their contradictions are pointed out because it means they have to update their worldview, which they don't want to do for
Right.
various reasons.
Yeah. The phantasm idea is interesting. I also think, of course, first of all, your class plays a role into it. Your material incentives. Let's say like everybody is working
For sure.
but some people are better off working class people. But I also think that um we are in the Western world the products of the greatest indoctrination in history, in my opinion. You know, Soviets, North Koreans, Chinese, you know, whatever evil authoritarian government you can think of, globals could not have dreamed of creating such an indoctrination as liberalism has done to our youth's minds, right? We're this country that's based on freedom and democracy, and yet we were founded by slave owners, right? We're a country where everybody is equal and has equal opportunities, but we stand on genocide in native land. We're a country where we can have a black president, but that black president sends bombs overseas, and the people who are receiving those bombs don't know the difference between a white president and a black president. But
Right.
it is so painful to have everything taught to you because it becomes part of your personal identity, right? Liberalism is part of your personal identity. It is who you are as a human.
People don't realize that, I think. People don't realize how much they've been intimidated.
Right. Absolutely. So
Right. So
it is. It is almost like an ego death to deconstruct everything you have been taught. It deconstructs yourself as a person, and it places you in this system of capitalism where you're kind of privileged. And it sucks to admit that you're privileged, right? It sucks to admit that you're on top of this system. And even I have to like contend with the fact that I'm privileged to some extent, being not a global South worker, and I get, you know, better off. I get boosted. My lifestyle is basically boosted by global Southern workers. And it just sucks. It just sucks to realize the truth that you were in a shitty system and everything else. I don't know. Any threat?
Brad, I think comparing it to an ego death is like pretty appropriate. And I think that's why people construct phantasms instead of updating their belief. It's because like, yeah, like an ego death is like, can be like a really stressful thing, right? It's like, you're just basically not to like ill a part of yourself that believes in like all these like maybe erroneous ideas. I don't know. People are maybe willing to do that. And I think it's our job as people who maybe see the truth closer to what it actually is to like hold these people's hands and they sort of unpack capitalism and liberalism as ideologies.
Yeah.
And personally, like I struggle with this a little bit. I don't have the patience to hold these people's right? It's like really frustrating. It's like, oh my God, why can't you just like use logic to come to the same conclusion that I have? But I think it's very critical work. And I think like that's something I need to work on. It's something I think generally people on the left need to work on. Right?
Absolutely.
If we want to win people over, we just have to hold their hand. Like it's annoying. Like, I don't want to like through these white people. Like I have to teach whatever.
Yeah. And
It's like a sentiment I've seen a lot, but we have to do it if we want.
yeah. And I think the internet is structured around not useful discussions. Is structured around arguments and just
And really fishy.
right. Yeah. And then I'm guilty of this too. I'm awful at talking to liberals. I'm awful at talking to Republicans.
I think we're the same in our regard.
Yeah. You know, like it comes in my comment section. I'm playing around with them. I'm just goofing off, trolling them. So this is something that we have to work on ourselves, obviously.
Right.
But I think the internet is so structured around like points, right? Like likes, Um, getting dunks on somebody, ratioing somebody that like construct
Right.
conversations where we're actually holding these people's hands and moving them towards a better dialectical understanding of the world around them. Doesn't really happen, and we're more so just goofing on them and hoping to get some points. And I think that's very fascinating what you said about the phantasm. Because if everybody thinks logically, right, this system of capitalism fucking sucks for us
Right.
working class, right? The most logical conclusion is that we, in a world of have-nots and haves, in a world where one minority owns all the means of production and the vast majority don't, that the vast majority grabs the means of production and wheels them into their own hands. But people construct these phantasms because, again, it's so painful to unlearn that because movies, education, your family, the nuclear family,
It becomes hard to enjoy life, literally. Like, all
the,
the nice thing you have, it's like, oh man, like, find these bananas. It's like, if you know the history of bananas, it's like, I feel bad for eating this.
yeah,
And it becomes like so much harder. Like, life just becomes a little bit like harder to forget.
it becomes really
Like, being
yeah, yeah. Because it puts you in this juxtaposition with society around you. You're suddenly an enemy to society around you in a way. In a way, like you're against everything around you. And I think people just want comfortability. So they'll look at the genocide in Gaza and it's so mentally straining that they'll say, you know what? I don't care what's happening overseas because seeing dead babies, you have deep within you, everybody has a human empathy, but you got to layer that in comfortability. You can't, it's so hard to just accept what's happened in Gaza, right? For the average person, that puts a mental strain on everybody. So they'll say like, oh, you know what? I don't care what happens overseas. You know what? They're terrorists. You know what? Hamas. You know what?
yeah, all these, yeah, could be like explained as phantasms. Like, they're just not even true. You analyze.
Of course.
We just have to construct this because we can't face like the fact that, yeah, that babies and babies are literally getting killed. It's like our fault as Americans that this is happening.
Yeah, that all of us share a little bit of responsibility in this.
Exactly.
In our inaction, whatever action we have done, it hasn't been enough. And I think that's a painful pill to swallow. It's almost like teaching Nazis to have humility, right? Like after World War II, all of the Nazis had to be re-educated. And of course, in West Germany, it was done terribly. But they were brought into classes. They were shown films about the concentration camps because a lot of them hadn't been in concentration camps. And they had to learn what evil things they had done. And I just don't think that's possible for a lot of Americans. That's a very painful pill to swallow, that the project you've been part of. And also, I think what's very hard to swallow is that if Kamala Harris has no problem beheading babies, you know, like ripping them apart, having their guts turned into mush overseas, she has no problem with bombing your babies as long as it's for the profit motive. She doesn't care about your babies as little as she cares about babies overseas. And we sort of have this paternalistic attachment to our government, right? Like mother,
Yeah.
the son. You know, on that talk show, what did that lady say? We need a Mama Harris or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy. Yeah, I think it was Drew Barrymore who said that.
Eh. My mom watches her talk show sometimes. It's such gross neoliberal garbage, you know. Yeah, likes. But my mom eats it up, obviously. Um, but it's painful that to be separated from mom, to learn that, you know, the government, our mom or dad is evil and that everything that they're telling us is evil. Like, I don't think a lot of people want to accept that.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you want to pick up on any of these threads.
Yeah. I think part of, yeah, why it's unacceptable is because, like, maybe we haven't done a good enough job offering, like, a third alternative because I think both Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, both think the other side is the evil one and their side is the, and they think that because it's like, well, the Republicans are evil, the Democrats oppose them, so the Democrats must be good. For
Yeah.
one, like, honestly, Republicans think the same in the opposite direction. I think, like, our job as leftists or Marxist-Leninists is to, like, offer to the markets, really, a third option that isn't both of these two things. It's to change, yeah, like, the cultural item of this two-party system. Maybe we can do something outside. presents it as like a violence.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think our biggest struggle right now in America is not in we're not in the global south. We can't do like a protracted people's war with we grab a bunch of Maoist guerrillas and in, Brooklyn,
Right.
or Times Square, we start like shooting around. Like we're not at that stage in the Western world. Our greatest struggle right now is ideological. And we have been sort of bad at offering an alternative to Democrats and Republicans. I think that is where really our left has failed. I've been reading a lot of Fred Hampton speeches recently for a project I'm doing, and Fred Hampton was so adamant that regular people understand Marxist-Leninism and dialectics. They just need to be taught to practice it. And how do we get them to practice it? How do we get them to practice communism and socialism? Through programs, free breakfast programs, through free health clinics. By teaching people through practice these things, they become communists without ever touching Marx or Engels. They already have it in them. And of course, that isn't to say you shouldn't read Marx or Engels, but if we want to access regular people, go up to them, meet them where they are, right? Like if they're somebody whose family is about to be evicted, help them form a tenants union, and they learn Marxism through that, through forming the tenant union, through putting it into practice. And of course, they do have to eventually touch Marx and Engels, but they've sort of learned communism without ever reading Das Kapital or something like that.
Right. I think that's also another shortcoming of leftism, especially on people will read a ton of theory and then not any emphasis practicing or like doing the struggle on the streets, like forming unions. Because I think that's how like everyday people, do arrive at the ideas of socialism. I think like anyone who has to engage really seriously against these oppressive systems will not really arrive at communism as the conclusion.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of it is like getting more people involved
Absolutely.
with practice. And that's why I actually built a different website called joinalocal.org. I haven't really been maintaining it. The purpose of that website is to connect to people with like orgs in their area who may like be struggling with regards to causes that they care about, such as like immigrant rights, police brutality, or like a wage struggle for them. It's something that I want to continue working on, but I'm actually working on something else right now, taking precedence.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon, I can get back and join.
Do you want to tease what you're working on, or is it under wraps?
No, it's not under wraps. Basically what I'm working on is I'm part of a organization here in Seattle, called the Seattle Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. Basically we're fighting for community control of the police. And I know it's not police abolition, but basically it's like maybe the strongest form of police accountability.
Yeah.
It basically allowed us like people to vote for a committee that can actually make binding decisions with regards to the police. So like this community council could like vote to shrink the police, and the police budget would be shrink. And that's like currently not really thing anywhere. Like police accountability even that's strong. So that's what we're working on. Thing that I'm building is basically like a digital that any like org can use. It basically like can scan like public data and like send out alerts to people if anything changes. So the use case that we're focusing is like if we find cops that are doing like excessive Terry stops, for example, and they're stopping mostly black people, it can send us an alert. We can publish these findings. Like, hey, this officer is racist.
Yeah.
Like, we need to do something about this, for example. But like more broadly speaking, it can allow any org to send any extra email notifications or campaigns based on any arbitrary levels of data.
Nice.
I don't know. It's kind of vague, but I think the use cases will become obvious as like it develops.
Nice. Yeah. I think the internet is just a beautiful tool for calling out things like we couldn't have done this in the 70s, right? Like calling out random policemen on their bullshit. The internet has become this beautiful tool of public accountability in a way that I don't think we would have ever seen before, and organizing people in ways that we would have never seen before. Suddenly, I'm able to organize with people in Italy and Romania, just like all over the world. And it
Right.
truly is beautiful. We'll see how long it lasts, of course. Like they're not going to allow all this freedom of speech forever, especially once it becomes a big enough thorn in the neck of the state.
We're already starting to see that.
Yeah.
I think TikTok once again is cracking down on anti-Zionism. Or I think like people who are around for the early internet, I feel like kind of limits like what the internet has become. Yeah. This like highly corporatized, like advertisement driven space instead of like community oriented spaces, which is what it used to be maybe in the early.
It used to be like a series of chat rooms, things like
Right. People just hanging out on
yeah,
digital spaces and sharing ideas.
talking to each other. Yeah. Like-minded
Yeah.
people,
Not,
just exchanging ideas.
right. Or even like, yeah, not like minded people. I feel like it's really easy to fall into echo chambers where it's like the names a little bit or you have to just interact with people who are not like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the internet has been so important in shaping so many people's ideologies. I mean, of course, there is the issue of echo chambers. It's so easy to fall into an echo chamber today. I think that's the goal of neoliberalism, is to isolate you so much that you fall into this echo chamber of like-minded peers where you're not challenged at all. But it has also introduced so many people to Marxist-Leninism in a way that they would have been before. Like, if the world was still run by cable news and Hollywood, which is where most people would be getting their information from, I don't think most people would be Marxists, communists, anarchists. Like, they wouldn't be able to challenge the predominant society around them. So I think the internet
Yeah.
has been beautiful in that way.
I guess like I don't know. I don't have that great of an understanding of American history, but like I do feel like during like the civil rights era, there was like it felt like what appears to be like a greater movement towards like Marxist socialism
Yeah.
than there is now. And they had on the internet then. So do you think like maybe the internet has like some negative side effects that we're like considering? Like why do you think like they were able to have so much success back then with the internet?
I think just basically the civil rights era was just a perfect storm that awakened so many people who were just done with the contradictions of America, right? Imperialism, colonialism, racism, the glaring contradictions of America on the world stage, challenging the Soviet Union and saying we're an equal democratic society, and Black people not being able to drink from the same fountain. Was just so great that it was able to politically motivate people in a way that they cha- um, uh, challenged Americanism itself. And you are right, a lot of the civil rights era bled directly into the Black Panthers, and these radical Black youths who read Marx, who read Lenin, who looked to Mao Zedong and Kim Il Sung and said, you know what, we're going to have proletarian internationalism and we're going to fight for Black rights this way. I think why it's so much harder now is that the glaring contradictions of America are more hidden. So obviously, we've still got Jim Crow basically through the police system, the racist drug policies, but the state says
Right.
it's equal, right? On the books, everything is equal and fair, but in practice, it's not. And so it's a lot harder for people to connect the dots between the direct racism and the state has a lot more room for error. Right. The shooting of Sonia Massey. Oh, the policeman can just say, I was afraid of the boiling water, right? It's not because of racism. I was just afraid of boiling water. And so the state is given a lot more room for error, where the contradictions are not as obvious for people to be able to be awakened.
So I guess like a follow-up question then is like, do you think there's a case for accelerationism? Because I think accelerationism would reveal these contradictions in a faster manner. And like because of climate change, I think we are kind of on the clock. Like, we can't take to or where we at. As we know it, I guess like people still go around, but the line vastly different.
My opinions on accelerationism is that people who promote it, like voting for Trump or whatever, making conditions worse, end up being accidentally useful idiots for fascism. Because just because you make contradictions of a society worse, just because you take away workers' rights doesn't mean they magically gain class consciousness, right? It just means that we inch closer towards fascism. What I am a big believer of is that our rights are going to be taken away regardless of whether or not we're pushing the gas on the pedal. Our stance is going to deteriorate towards fascism, whether or not we're pushing the gas on the pedal. So we should be organizing workers, getting them class consciousness, getting them to be ready for that fascism rather than supporting that fascism. And also, it's so contradictory when average people see Marxist-Leninists saying, hell yeah, I'm voting for Trump, so that you can gain class consciousness. That just confuses average people about what we're
Right.
fighting.
That's not going to win anyone over.
Yeah, yeah, that's my argument against accelerationism. Let capitalism deteriorate on its own. We don't need any help to do it. Let's fight that deterioration, and in that process, get people conscious. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I more or less agree. I was just asking, for the sake of the viewer who might be like accelerationist, for example. I think it actually like makes logical sense if you don't think about it that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you summed it up pretty nicely.
Yeah, I think another reason that, going back to that, our left is so weak right now is that we're in a post-Soviet world. You know, who was the Black Panther Party looking towards? When they were forming their ideology, it was the Soviet Union. It was the other side in the Cold War, and so communist parties all over the world have sort of lost their steam, and we are in this structure of rebuilding a completely destroyed left. You know, one that's been cointelprode to all hell, one that's been shot and repressed by the state. You know, like so many Black Panthers were killed. Fred Hampton, I'm talking about before, was killed when he was 21. Tons of Black Panthers were just randomly killed by the FBI. And so we're starting at square zero again, right? We're slowly building up from square zero, from a left that is before even the Gilded Age, right? Like 1917, you know, before the Red Scares. So we're in a post-apocalyptic world trying to rebuild up everything about the left. And that's why I don't think we have the Black Panther presence, even with online spreading Marxism.
Right. But like maybe in 10 years, it could.
It could very easily.
There could be issues like
fast these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a little worried because it does seem like fascism is rising, especially with like the decaying material conditions of like your average American. I think that's one thing like a lot of rebels are maybe blind to is like things actually got a lot worse for a lot of Americans under Biden. And like most people aren't that politically informed or educated, so they'll just like observe things around them and be like, yeah, things are worse under Biden versus Trump. So why would I go Biden? Yeah, and I think a lot of liberals don't recognize that. That's how like most Americans base their politics off of. It's based off of what they experience. Like fascism doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because like the conditions are getting worse for a lot of these people, and like because the left is maybe not offering a very good solution at them, they'll just charge like to the far right instead.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think partly it's just that it's so much easier to become right wing than left wing. In order to become a leftist, you have to, in order to become a Marxist-Leninist, you have to unlearn everything you were taught, right? North Korea is
Yeah, I guess we did speak about.
yeah. North Korea isn't evil. China isn't robots everywhere. And then becoming a right wing is so much easier. It's you're at home. Your dad is the leader and your mom is subservient, and you're like, oh yeah, women's rights are bad. Like it's basically everything you've been taught. And I think I think one thing the left is really bad with that the right's excelling at is the culture war. Because
Unfortunately. Yeah.
so many of us are like, we're above the culture war, right? And I mean, I'm not gonna make culture war content. I'm very focused on like people who are really enmeshed in Marxism. But we do need more people who are communists and work out and make working out content. We need a lot more people.
I think that's one thing Hassan is doing really well.
Yeah.
I feel like on purpose he makes himself look very attractive. He works out. He dresses well. I think part of that is fighting this image of communism that's very white and online. Maybe they don't work. I think you cut out for a second there. I don't know.
Yeah. But I got what you were saying. Hassan is making himself attractive. going to the working out demographic. But I do think if you're interested on anything online and you're a young man, you watch a working out video, suddenly your feed is filled with anti-SGW videos. And that guy who's like roided
Right.
and works out, he's anti-SGW too. And then you fall into the far right pipeline. If you're doing movie reviews, suddenly you get recommended a snarky guy, or even the movie reviewer himself is like, why is this woman yada 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 in the film?
Right. Right.
So
It's so sinister in these online spaces. Like
absolutely.
suddenly just like trip once and then suddenly you're falling down this whole right rabbit hole.
And so I think communists are losing the culture war. So I think if you are Marxist-Leninist and you are interested in films, you're interested in working out, you're interested in whatever, make content that's not necessarily political, but sprinkles a little bit of your ideology in there. Because we need people like you to just push people to question themselves, question the ideology around them, from fashion to whatever,
Yeah, I think that's why talking about celebrities is important, despite what people online like. I think a lot of people who complain about us talking about celebrities, so they would just want us to talk about the political theory and geopolitics. But the thing is, like, those things don't have any sort of organic engagement at all. Like, so we have to like talk about Taylor Swift to sprinkle in some way, or just ideas or like
yeah,
anti-imperialist ideas, right? We can't just talk about anti-imperialism. I think a lot of like LeftTube or like BreadTube, they do a pretty good job. They will talk about culture, also how like anti-capitalism is kind of like subtext that sneaks up on the viewer.
yeah.
I think we need more of it. I think like LeftTube is like much smaller compared to like those like alt-right anti-SJW workout groups who are like dominating the YouTube space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think BreadTube is a double-edged sword because it's both great at getting people to sort of fall into leftism, but it's also creates its own phantasms, right? Like people like Vosh or Destiny, people fall into the pipeline and then they stop before they actually get to a real dialectical analysis of the world around them. And they become like these sort of like lefty Joe Biden supporters or,
I guess I don't count those two as part of LeftTube, but I suppose, yeah, maybe technically speaking.
they market themselves as left too. So
Yeah.
I think it is dangerous to rely on the structures that we have now because it does BreadTube and everything does sort of create those phantasms, does stop people from further educating themselves. It gets them like halfway there. So I think we need like really dedicated Marxist-Leninists who work out and like, hey guys, this is how you do bicep curls, and this is what you should eat, and punch a fascist. It's just like
Yeah. It is interesting because I do feel like there's no one in the LeftTube space that identifies publicly as a Marxist-Leninist. And I know people who like think Hassan might be, but he never come out and said that, which is interesting. I wonder if there was like a reason for that. Maybe the algorithm punishes those two words.
yeah.
Or like if you say Marxism or Leninism, like you might get demonetized.
His fan base does this weird half thing where they're like, "Oh yeah, the Red Army was great, but the Stalin was evil." Like he plays that line very funnily. Sean's the only other left tuber I can think of who's most likely a closeted Marxist-Leninist. If you know Sean and his essays,
Yeah. I'm familiar with him.
yeah, he does really well researched essays, and a lot of my friends started watching Sean and ended up Marxist-Leninists. Like he opened the door for them perfectly. Just to these like, first of all, he started out deconstructing anti-SJW videos and just showing how
Yeah.
they were clips, and then he did essays on Hiroshima and Palestine, and he's a really wonderful resource. But yeah, I think the culture struggle is something that we're so often we're too good for that, right? And we cannot be too good for that. And
Yeah, we just want to tell people to go read theory and go ahead and expect that to be
expecting it up, right?
like,
Right. And
yeah, that's we can't just be doing those things.
well, hey, go read Das Kapital, bozo.
Right.
That we need to teach people how to practice Marxism, and I think part of that just begins with the culture struggle. And Taylor Swift holds enormous power. If she tomorrow said there's genocide happening in Palestine, let's support the Palestinians, millions of white middle class teenage girls for the first time would be class artists. It would be amazing, right? So I think, yeah, continuing to pressure Taylor Swift, Pharrell Williams, all these people who are meshed within Hollywood, is important. It's so important. If you want to pick up on any of those threads, maybe.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, one thing that I did want to do is pivot to work YouTube, doing like video essay work instead of just like posting to a forum TikTok.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think TikTok, it's so hard to explore like any complex ideas in like amount of time that you're given on TikTok. Like, how can I talk about Taylor Swift, but also like how like anti-capitalist subtypes else to talk about like X, Y, or Z in like under a minute? Like, I can't do all of that.
yeah,
So that's one thing that I do want to do, is switch to all or YouTube content. I think one thing that I've seen done pretty well is like using like movies or like TV as a talking point for like exploring like concepts like hegemony, capitalism, stuff like that. And that's like something that I'm personally interested in as well. Like
absolutely.
I'd much prefer to make that fake content. It's like we cancel today on TikTok.
Right, right.
Yeah. Um
Yeah, shows like
so yeah.
Boys, One Piece, these are great jumping off points. You can't really get Netflix content out of Dragon Ball, I don't think, but you could try, I think.
You can try. I mean, there's political ideas baked into every single piece of media, right? So you could really talk about anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of celebrity worship is just that it goes back to what Nietzsche said. We have killed God. And what he meant by that was that like we killed the idea of God. We've entered into this atheistic scientific world, but it's the human desire for having that religious figure is still there, and we replace that with these celebrities, right? Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Who else? Kanye. After everything that Kanye has done, his fan base is still so crazy about Ye.
Even our politicians have elevated themselves to celebrities.
Yeah,
I mean, like, would like your politician, like maybe yesteryear do like rap girl summer like marketing? Like, probably not. And honestly, like Trump is crossed over from being a celebrity into like being a politician. I would argue he's still mostly a celebrity.
yeah, yeah.
He's not interested in policy at all.
I know. This human desire to have like a godlike figure. We so often talk about the cult of personality of the Kim family, but Kamala Harris, Trump, Taylor Swift have the insane cult of personalities because we don't even get shit out of them, right? Like at least like right, argue with the Kim family, you get free healthcare in a guaranteed apartment.
You get an apartment, like
Yeah.
I get nothing.
It's not the best apartment, but it does the job with the limited materials that they have. You get free healthcare. You get a guaranteed fucking job. What the fuck do I get out of worshiping Taylor Swift? She's just replacing God for me, and all I get is shitty white girl music. I'm sorry to Taylor Swift, but and Trump and Kamala Harris likewise.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I do want to do less of is hating. I think I need too much hating. I think hating like it's good for attracting some audiences, but I think it alienates a lot of people. Like I hate on Taylor Swift. Like a lot of Taylor Swift fans are like working class. They're like just your average teenage girl, maybe. It's like I'm deep down like that alienate. Exactly. Like what am I doing hating Taylor Swift? Like this person's never gonna listen to anything I ever say again in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's hard. I think hating is just kind of fun, especially as a content creator. I don't know. I never said device to do. I don't even know from it. Yeah, right. It's like definitely engagement farming. Definitely a thing.
Yeah.
With like all this rage being.
I accidentally tapped into that with by releasing a bunch of anti-Harris content, and I was just speaking my mind. Like I didn't even realize I was going to kick such a hornet's nest, but I got so many views from just people who were enraged at me calling Kamala a genocider, and like they're so angry. But it was so great for the algorithm. The algorithm absolutely loved that these people were saying "fuck you," things like that.
Hey, and the thing is, yeah, it's like I found some of that trap too, and like my videos didn't get that many likes because I feel like I was too negative. yeah, I think I need to tone it down on the hating because if I want to convince these people, right, hating on them is not to change their mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you obviously have these battles. Some people are easier to convince than others.
Right. I do think the people responding, they're like really entrenched. But the thing is, it's like your average viewer who doesn't comment anything, right? They might see that interaction and then think negatively of you without even saying,
Yeah. Yeah. Your job is to get the gear turning on somebody who's like half on the fence, in my opinion.
right, exactly. Just to, I don't think, yeah, arguing with people or like rage baiting is necessarily a good tool to do, even if it is good.
Yeah. Yeah. The algorithm loves it, but it's not. It wasn't very effective, right? Like our conversations went nowhere. I called them a genocider, a horrible person. They called me the same. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. But yeah, we have sort of replaced God with Taylor Swift, with whatever, and these people hold. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like we were so normalized to just waste our cash for the bourgeois, right? Like we're so normalized to just pay for overpriced things and get our surplus value stolen from us by the bourgeois, that we are now normalized into donating to Kamala Harris and getting nothing out of it. Like, what the fuck are people? What is the psychology you think of people who are donating to Kamala Harris right now?
I think it's a fear-based worldview. Like these people have a fear-based worldview, and the thing that they fear is Donald Trump. It's not even necessarily like his policies or the things that been under Trump. They fear like the idea of Trump, like Trumpism.
Yeah,
So that makes sense. Um, and I think that's why they're doing it. It's just out of maybe kind of an irrational fear. I wouldn't say completely irrational. I mean, there are things that Trump did. Reject. Those things, a lot of those things happen under Biden too, which is why I call it
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think the Democrats, so many average people are absolutely afraid of the state of the world right now. Their politics are just
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we're living in the end of the world. Like it's a stressful,
yeah,
especially Gen Z, who's like by the time they're in old age, like the Earth might be incinerated. Like your average summer day might be 100 and
yeah.
time they're old, and that's horrifying. Right?
It is
I think
horrifying. And people,
it's just like you into your fear, like you just end up doing irrational actions, such as supporting Kamala Harris or like donating to her instead of like let's say organizing a labor union, which would do like benefit you multitudes.
more, yeah, yeah.
Different voting for Kamala Harris.
The Hampton Institute said one general strike across America would do more than 1,000 years of voting, something like that.
Oh yeah,
And they were absolutely right. But I think it is a fear-based phantasm where it's like, I'm so afraid of what Trump's going to do. Sorry. I'm so afraid of what Trump's going to do. I'm so sorry of what's going to happen. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen. I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris out of fear. You can feel the fear in so many liberals' words.
oh yeah,
You got to vote for Kamala. It's the end of the world. And the world is ending. But their solution is wrong. Their analysis of what's causing the end of the world is wrong. And I think,
right, exactly.
and I think Trump is the easiest thing to everybody over the Democratic Party. Sorry for cutting you off.
Well, yeah, like they Kamala Harris is breaking fundraising records because of Donald.
Wow.
Yeah, like she's probably having a field day because of that. But yeah, I think this phantasm around voting is a result of it's just like if we were to acknowledge the real reasons why the world is ending, it would make us feel really hopeless, depressed, or whatever. Like feel like there's nothing we can do. Feels insurmountable. Like people don't want to face. So I think they turn to like, yeah, voting will work. You know, if it never works.
But they can't imagine ever doing anything more than that. And I think our goal should be to show them that we can achieve something beyond this, right? We can achieve so much more if we just break our minds out of this two-party system. You have to, it's like you said, we have to like very carefully and gently guide these people out of the phantasms that they've created. And some people will never get past that phantasm, but our goal is to get people who are on the fence, who are sort of get that seed planted in their head that this system is bullshit, that, yada, 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 things like that.
Right. How do you feel about the MAGA communists? I don't know if you know about the MAGA communists, but people like Jackson Hinkle, I think, for example, I think they're trying to do a thing where they're trying to gently guide people out of conservatism rather than liberalism into communism.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a whole episode coming out about that.
Yeah.
To put my thoughts briefly, they accidentally fall into tailism. So Marxist-Leninist goal is to guide the working class. It's both to have your hand on the pulse of the working class. Obviously, we have to remain
Yeah.
democratic, but if the working class is allowed to do its politics on its own, basically the best it ever achieves is a trade union that becomes enmeshed within the state, right? So in America, that would be becomes enmeshed within the Democratic Party machine. So we have to guide the working class towards revolution, teach them that we have to break the system. Taylorism, what it does is it becomes enmeshed within that idea that, the masses have that's going to lead them towards nowhere. And that's what the MAGA communists are trying to do. They sort of become enmeshed within patriotism. America is so great, yada, yada, and try to guide the working class somewhere else. That's such a weird contradiction to try to do that it's
Right.
going to lead nowhere. Like trying to conflate American patriotism with Stalinism makes no sense. I don't think so.
Yeah. So you think eventually, like, they're going to arrive at a contradiction and they can't really escape it with changing?
The whole ideology is built on such great contradictions. Communism stands for everything that America doesn't. That trying to combine communism and patriotism is just such a big rupture that I think they're going to accidentally end up at fascism. And I think they're well-meaning people, right, that are just confused. I think Haas is a bad actor. I think Eddie Liger, though, he's a guy who is so well-meaning but is so unable to deconstruct himself, right? Like he's unable to recognize that America is a settler colonial project, that he as a white person is more privileged than Native Americans. And he's had some controversial statements about Native American genocide. And so I think he's just a person who almost got to class consciousness, but is unable to deconstruct himself because it's a painful ego death. Deconstructing your white privilege and male privilege and things like
Yeah.
that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you have any thoughts on MAGA communism or ACP or whatever?
Yeah, I guess like I would think like, yeah, the strategy makes sense on surface level, but like it makes sense that like I feel like a lot of conservatives are actually kind of close to the point where a lot of
Yeah.
you're so close. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
just leave the racism behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think part of why like those movements don't work is because they don't address things such as like racism. Um, and like racism is like if you don't address it, it becomes like a problem in your movement. It also like basically just taint your entire movement. It's not gonna succeed. I think this is a problem even like the communists fall into, especially in online spaces. Like one thing I see a lot is like there's no struggle but class struggle.
Reductionism.
Yeah, it's like people do struggle outside of like their class identity, right? Um,
Yeah.
and like you notice the only people that tend to say these things are like white people.
Yeah.
Because if you're like on the left and you're a white man demographic, obviously you're gonna have struggles outside of just class. Um,
Yeah.
and like that's not to say like classism, racism, like patriarchy, they're not related. They're interconnected. Um, but just not acknowledging like patriarchy or racism and trying to build a communist, you're just gonna like you're just gonna only track white dudes and not a movement. You're not liberating anyone with just white dudes.
Yeah. 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 I think it's just so painful to deconstruct yourself because becoming a leftist is just deconstructing your identity. And again, it goes back to that ego death, like deconstructing yourself as a white man and everything that you've been raised up to believe is just painful. And I think a lot of people are just completely unable to do that. Fred Hampton spoke about it beautifully, where he said, like, yes, we are for black power, for yellow power, for white power. Well, he didn't say white power, obviously.
Right.
That's a different idea. But we are for all these races. We recognize that capitalism is the root of slavery and everything else, but we can't ignore slavery, everything else. Like that is
Right.
And so many black Marxists have dubbed black workers as sub-proletarians, right? So like proletarians who are further exploited than regular proletarians. I think that's a very important distinction that we need to hear. And, I myself have to deconstruct internalized racism, internalized homophobia, internalized ableism. We all have it to some extent. So yeah, that's why I always listen to black Marxists. That's why I always listen to disabled Marxists. It's important to just open up your mind to these people.
Right, exactly. I feel like those voices tend to be like the most insightful because, they live at the intersection of a lot of different oppressions within America. So it's like if we combine all their ideas, like we'll have a pretty good picture of what the systems and what we need to do to fix it. I think Fred Hampton was like really good at this in practice. Like he was able to unite so many different groups under the Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah, the Rainbow Coalition.
I always like to tell people this because it's like I feel like it's the closest we got to like an example of like true solidarity. Every single group.
Yeah.
He initially united like Latino gang, I think, the Black Panthers and like a working class like white leftist group. Which is crazy. I've never heard of someone like interact with different minority groups or like
I know in California specifically, they worked with the United Farm Workers. So see their Chilenas. So yeah, they were having strikes, and basically they didn't actually, it's kind of crazy. They didn't want white people buying grapes because the grapes were part of the exploitive industry. So Black Panthers showed up to grocery stores with guns because it was legal at the time. So it was to scare white people from buying these exploitative grapes that everybody was supposed to be boycotting. And then they worked with Yellow Panthers. There was some group called the Yellow Panthers, or it was an Asian American group. It had the name Yellow on it. So they worked with white people, and they actually worked with a white organization in the South that, funnily enough, was Marxist-Leninist and everything like that, but had the Confederate flag on it. It was called like the Dixie Coalition or something like that. Which is insane. But they would, from everything I've read, they were not like MAGA communists or anything. They just used the Confederate flag for whatever reason because that's so emblematic of people from the South.
that is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is probably the closest. And what's so important about the Black Panthers was that they did American solidarity, and they did international solidarity. They said, we're not free until Vietnamese are free. We're not free until Iraqis are free. I think that's so hard for people to do right now. A lot of people are like, I got to protect my interests. Fuck the Palestinians. Fuck the Sudanese. Fuck the Congolese. It's my interest, and I got to protect myself. And it's fear. It's fear, basically. And that's what the bourgeois want us to do. They want us to be so afraid that we're focusing on our own family over everybody else. And that's very natural to do, but it's also such a wrong analysis that we have to teach people that, no, your family's not going to be safe until Congolese people are safe and Palestinian people are safe and things like that.
Right. Yeah. I think countering fear-based ideologies, we have to offer like a hope-based one. I think that's, I feel like hope-based ideologies, they're just genuinely more exciting. No one wants to buy into a fear-based ideology. They just
do things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like Obama's campaign was built on like hope and change or whatever. It was like incredible marketing, even though whatever, like his 10 years president wasn't. But I think that's one thing like we should try and offer people is like hope for the future. And like, I think we often emphasize like loss, and like pain, to try and convince people. But I think one thing that we're not doing as much is like talking to wins, like leftists have made throughout the world in America. I think that's something we need to emphasize more because we have to demonstrate to people like, if we struggle outside of this like neoliberal system, we can make win, right? I think that's one thing I also want to emphasize in content going future. I hope like other content creators do that.
Yeah, giving people hope and things like that.
Right.
Right now, I think what the Democrat-Republican fight is Trump's good at giving people false hope, right? That we're gonna make America great again. That we're gonna
right. And his campaign is based off of hope. Kind of. It was weird, right?
It is.
And the Democrats is based off of fear, and I think that's why it's like harder to mobilize what should be like the Democratic base.
Yeah, it's what we're seeing right now is hope versus primal fear. Primal hope that your conditions are going to get better as like a white working class person versus this primal fear that we're going to go into a fascist autocracy where people are going to get shot left and right. That's not an awful fear to have. It is true that it's going to happen to some extent. I think it's going to be a lot less. It's going to be a lot more limited than the Democrats are advertising it as. I think Trump is going to become very easily enmeshed within the liberal state, and it's going to self-regulate itself so that it's not as bad as being advertised. We should still recognize that it's bad. I'm not downplaying it, but it's not like going to be like 1984-esque. That's going to come more in the future. Any kind of fascism like that. This is the beginning grounds of any kind of fascism like that. But it's this fight between hope and fear, a false hope, I should add. No, I don't think Trump's actually offering a good solution, but a false solution and hope and fear. And honestly, my money is on the hope winning. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like Trump is gonna win. Nobody is excited about Kamala. It's absolutely just, I'm afraid. I'm so fucking afraid.
The only people excited about her are the people who are going to vote Democrat.
And
And the people who are afraid or maybe on the fence and like they're doing so very reluctantly, but like any successful political movement can't be based in fear. No one is going to go do a revolution because they're afraid of something worse.
yeah,
They do a revolution because they have hope for something better. And I think that's why like a lot of like the revolutions we've seen in the past, it's like closely tied to anti-imperialism, closely tied to liberating the country, imperialist forces. It's because like those revolutions were won because those people had something to fight for. They were like, we dream a world where like we're not under the imperialist boot anymore.
yeah. I'm dreaming of a world where my children are fed, right? Like it's so simple like that. I have a doctor, right? And that guy has so much hope. That gave them so much hope to just keep on fighting and even sacrifice their life. There's this very famous story of when the Vietnamese are fighting the French in the Battle of Dien Phu. I think I fucked up that pronunciation definitely, but they're fighting the French in the Battle of Dien Phu. They're rolling up this. They grabbed an anti-aircraft missile from the French in a previous fight. They're rolling it up. Something goes wrong, and a Vietnamese man has to sacrifice his life and get crushed in between the gears of the machine to get it. Yeah, like it's insane. But he did that because he was like, I can create a better world for my children, right? Like even if I die, my children are gonna prosper, and my people are gonna prosper. And I just don't think that Democrats are offering that. They're like, fear. Everything is gonna get worse. Vote us in. We can't offer you a good future, but it's fear, because it could get worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like among like people who are to the left, and I feel like we all strap like the only reason to do socialism, is to avoid cash. And that shouldn't be the only reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that's hard is like people in America do have like a lot of material privilege. So it is hard to convince people,
Yeah.
right? People are afraid of losing their like amenities or whatever, like, having their placeholders.
I will say socialism in America is going to be absolutely awful for the middle class, the comfortable middle class. Like they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
Well, socialism in America is going to be for homeless people, for Native Americans, for minorities who have been franchised, for middle class people in suburbia. It's going to be fucking awful because they've already got everything they need: doctors, food on the table, a roof over their head. So it's food vouchers and like these guarantees are going to be amazing for homeless people, for people who are on the fringes of society. It's going to be kind of awful for people who already have easy access to all of this, and suddenly you have to wait in line with all of the rest of the bums to get a slice of bread. For the bum who's been on the street, I get free bread. And for the first time in my life, I have guaranteed bread and coffee. For like somebody who's so used to getting that easily, I have to wait in line in front of this asshole. So
Yeah.
it is a bit of a hard sell.
Yeah.
But we have to sell it. We have to sell it somehow. Yeah.
I think one maybe way to market this is, I think if the top 1% of America's wealth was redistributed, I think everyone would get, even the upper middle class, like if we were just going to do it evenly, everyone would get, I think, around $130,000
Yeah.
in their bank. And that sounds like a pretty good deal for everyone who's not at 1%. And it's not, like America is in like a state of hyper abundance, right?
Yeah.
Um, like I don't think we're gonna like if socialism happen in America. I don't think anybody would be waiting in like bread lines necessarily. Because we already have an abundance of bread. We're blowing away our excess food.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. That is true.
I think what it would look like is like maybe the middle class, like their lives don't change much. It might get slightly worse. They might not have the ability to purchase something like a Peloton, for example, but
Yeah.
I think in general, like all the bad things we associate with communism, like waiting like years for like
Yeah, obviously these happen in hundreds.
luxuries can do work.
Yeah.
Right. Like China and like Soviet Russia, like back in the day, like these used to be very backwards countries. Like America doesn't have that. We don't need to industrialize it. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I think it would be kind of like a utopia society if America became socialist because of like how productive our society actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. I think also the middle class is kind of dying. Like, let's be honest, there's not going to be that many here who are comfortable and in the middle class. Everybody's going to be renting soon. Nobody's going to be a homeowner soon. In my small conservative town, right outside of LA, a couple of hours from LA,
Yeah.
almost every single house has been bought by a multi-billion-dollar company in LA or San Francisco. So
Yeah.
everybody is renting in this town. Nobody owns a house. Every single new house that we get gets bought up by these big corporations. There's so few homeowners left in this town.
That is crazy. Yeah.
And that's just the future of America, pretty much. Like that middle class dream of the owning the house and the two kids and the dog. No, it's going to be such a small section of humanity that everybody's going to be at the bottom. And when you're at the bottom, it's a lot easier to sell socialism because we have nowhere else to go. Things can't get any worse. Basically, at that point, it's just damage control, real damage control, right? Socialistic damage control. And then going beyond damage control. But at the first, it's just damage control. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think the statistic now is I think 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
66.
And that number was on 8%. It used to be 58%, I believe, in 2020. I don't know if anyone's gonna fact check me on this, but I think that's a great.
I
mean, around the
know how fucked this country is.
yeah, it's because all of our content is based around. I mean, this is back to the cultural hegemony part, but all of our content that we see online is based around for middle class. That's how 20% of Americans like they dominate a culture in America.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't seem like 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck because that's not what we see online. That's not what we see in our TV shows.
Yeah. HGTV or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Like you wouldn't believe 66%, I think, if your only interaction with the world was through the internet, through media.
Yeah. And it's just so unfortunate that for a lot of these people, the easier answer is fascism. And we have to make the easier answer the most logical one, which is communism. Communism is the most logical answer to all of these issues. But people create these, as you said before, phantasms, middle-class people. I think socialism and revolution only happens when people have nothing left to lose, basically. Like the people of Palestine, they're ripe for revolution. What more do they have left to lose? They've lost their daughters, their sons, their houses. The people of Vietnam, what did they had left to lose? They were under the colonialist boot of the French. Many of them were living in very rural societies. Some of them in the forest, right? Like very. It was almost like they were living in the 14th century, right? What did the people of Tsarist Russia have left to lose? What did the people of China have left to lose after the rape of Nanking? And, of course, being peasants. So many people in America still have something left to lose, right? Yeah, they're not going to fight until there's nothing left to lose. And our goal is just to build up a consciousness so that when we get to that point where there is nothing left to lose, they're going to go towards communism and not fascism.
Right. And that, I think, to anyone watching it was like, what's your solution whenever we talk about what like this is the solution. It's building that consciousness. So one day long. When the day of revolution comes, I guess, there's big enough base where like we can beat the fascists.
Yeah. in the Philippines, their struggle is with the gun, right? It's in the forest. They're shooting Filipino cops, right? And they're these Maoist guerrillas having lesbian weddings in the forest, and it's amazing, right? Right. We look at this and we're like, hell yeah, In India, of course, the same thing with the Naxalites. In America, our struggle is going back to Gramsci. It's ideological. It's all within the mental sphere because we're not in the material conditions yet where we can just imagine trying to do a guerrilla war in Appalachia or something. Like it could happen, but it's not going to be successful, right?
Right. The people are very, if that happened, like most people would not be on board.
We would isolate ourselves from the rest of society immediately,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, our main goal is just to continue that ideological struggle and bring up that class consciousness. So yeah, this has been a lovely conversation. Again, I'm with TooMeanToBean. Do you have any final concluding remarks? Where can people find you? What are the websites from you that they should check out? And what should they check out in the future from you? Keep an eye out.
Yeah. So the websites are regarding like the reverse canary mission. It's reversecanarymission.org. The other website I was talking about is joinalocal.org. A website is currently kind of under construction, so I wouldn't necessarily go there just yet. The other project that I talked about is yet to be released, but I will announce it. You can TikTok. You can handle there is TooMeanToBean. T-O-O-Mean T-O-Bean. This conversation has been great. I'm glad you had me on.
Yeah, of course.
And happy to jump on in any future episodes as well.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to have you on for future discussion, further discussion if something happens. How did you come up with your username, by the way? I meant to ask you that at the beginning.
It was just like a nonsense phrase one of my friends said one day.
Okay.
Doesn't mean
That wasn't good. I got you.
Yeah.
So this has been lovely, and thank you so much for coming on, and bye-bye.
All right, yeah, see you later.
This episode of the Pokepreet Pod has been brought to you by our generous members on our Patreon. If you'd like to become one of them, go to patreon.com/thepokepreetpod. Thank you.
What the fuck? Glory to Stalin. I barely made.
And a special shout out to our Marshal of the Soviet Union member, Matthias T. If you'd also like a shout out, please consider subscribing to our Patreon, where you can also get episodes up to a month early. Thank you.